Hi, everyone, and welcome to this CropLife International session on moving beyond food security, the intersection of agriculture with climate change, biodiversity, and social rights. It's my pleasure to be moderating a discussion with Michael Doane from the Nature Conservancy. We'll introduce him in a moment on this important topic. And my name is Christine Gould. I am the founder and CEO of an organization called Thought for Food, which is focused on catalyzing breakthrough innovation led by the next generation all around the world. It's really exciting to be talking to you, Michael, as you've been a leader in this space throughout your career. So I'd love to talk with you first about maybe a quick introduction of who you are and what you're doing at the Nature Conservancy and what brought you to this role.
Well, thank you, Christine. It's wonderful to be with you and the whole audience here today. I do lead an area for the Nature Conservancy that's relatively new, but I think very important. And so I'll just tell you about the Nature Conservancy first. It's a venerable organization started in the U.S. almost 70 years ago by a group of citizen scientists who found some rare plants that they thought were so important, so special, that they put second mortgages on their home to raise money to actually buy the land and conserve the plants. And that really kind of built the ethic of the Conservancy from the very start, which was to look out for the specialness of nature and to protect it. And so that's how a lot of people know us today, is our large protection strategies that have gone on for now decades and has spawned really a new conservation ethic.
Can you talk a little bit about this provisionary aspect of nature and the work that you're leading, and how does that link to sustainability, and particularly sustainability in agriculture?
At the Nature Conservancy, our mission is to conserve the land and water upon which all life depends. And we want to realize that vision by really understanding that it's not about people versus nature. It's not a competition for resources. It's really a virtuous cycle if we get it right. And that's this idea that, as people, we have an opportunity and a responsibility to take care of nature, to steward her, to protect her, to help her when she's broken, and to repair her. But in the same way, nature takes care of us. Nature gives us food and water and sustenance. And if we take care of her, she'll take care of us. And so it's this virtuous cycle. Unfortunately, what I think we found is in certain places it's broken. And so the task before us is to restore nature in a way that she can then restore and support and provision us. The work that I lead is a team of experts around the world that focus on agriculture, fisheries, and fresh water. And what we now know is we have the science and capability to really turn the food system into a planetary restoration agenda.
Mm-hmm. That's beautiful. It's a really interesting point that you made about this either or dichotomy that has dominated how we've looked at, the world to date. It's been really about, we need to be productive versus restorative. We need technology versus, low tech, natural solutions. And what I see more and more of, and I think it sounds like what you're working on, is how to bring this either or into an and, that we can be both productive and restorative, that we can have technology, and natural solutions. Is this something that you would agree with? And if so, how do you see that happening, and what is the role of science and innovation in bringing this either or into an and?
Absolutely. The notion of sustainability was really built on this balance that kind of gets a little bit into the details of that false choice, I would argue, which is, how little can we damage the environment and still produce enough food for people? And it's kind of this question that in order to, feed and sustain people, we're going to have to do some damage to the environment. Our belief is that that's an old agenda. That's a yesterday kind of problem. The opportunity right now is to see the food production system as the largest gateway for restoration on the planet, and nothing less. That said, it's not business as usual. It's not about just simply incrementally moving forward on the next set of products and services and management approaches. We need to really understand the deep ecology of how nature works. And what we're finding is there's secrets that we can unravel around genetics, around the microbiome, around the functioning of the food system and how intimate and kind of elegant this system can be. And so within that, there's an innovation agenda, absolutely. But there's policy, finance, there's choices that we need to make.
We are here because of CropLife International, which is representing the plant science industry. Many of the companies in this space are involved in, trying to use these type of science-based solutions to feed the world. So what role do you think companies that, CropLife is representing have in terms of leading to this kind of solution paradigm that the Nature Conservancy stands for?
Well, certainly, some of the most innovative ideas in what I would coin as regenerative agriculture, and that's really the path forward, is to see the food system as having the potential to restore and regenerate the natural capital that we then depend on and make this virtuous cycle that I just spoke about really come to life. These are societal issues that we can't solve without farmers and ranchers really doing the essential work. And who do farmers and ranchers depend on? Well, it's a handful of companies that have deep R&D capabilities, that have manufacturing, customer relationships. They bring the product and service offerings to farmers and ranchers. So in short, we won't make this new food economy happen without some of the largest players or the most sophisticated and capable players really taking this agenda to heart.
And so it sounds like we really need a multi-stakeholder approach with, like you said, these R&D powerhouses, with the people who are producing, with nature-based organizations such as yourselves who are there, to protect and enhance our natural environment, and with the groups that you mentioned in your previous answer, policymakers, financial institutions, and I guess civil society would fall into, part of this multi-stakeholder consortium too. So how are we going to start to build these bridges so that we can get to these, what did you say, like business as unusual type solutions, right? What are we need to do next to build these types of solutions and quickly, because we don't have time to waste?
We're in the midst, Christine, of really forming what we're calling, as a new term, regenerative foodscapes. These are places in the global food system that we depend on. They're places like, the central U.S. Corn Belt, where the World Food Prize is being held today. There are also places like Northwest India, where the Green Revolution occurred. There are places like Kenya, the Tana River watershed, which holds 300,000 smallholder farmers, but also provides 95% of the fresh water that the city of Nairobi depends on just for basic everyday tasks. And so there's a relationship here between these food baskets and what people care about. And so creating these foodscapes, these places that I would say are going to be in food production well into the future, and making those as really, spotlights for how we can start to bring all the tools together, the best practices, work policy into the equation, test some innovative finance and science solutions, and really start to see the impact at what I call a landscape or a seascape or a foodscape level. And so, this new food economy that I speak of, yes, it absolutely can happen in a farmer's field. But to see the full value for society, we have to demonstrate it over a larger landscape and see all the connected values that flow out of that. So we're in the process of standing those up. We're going to be working on this for the next decade. It's the decade of restoration. The UN has dedicated this decade as the decade of restoration. Agriculture should be front and center in that restoration agenda. And so we will invite partners to come and test those solutions with us in these regenerative foodscapes.
How can we learn more about this? Are there websites we can visit to follow, the decade of restoration and get involved?
The Nature Conservancy, when we're at our best, we're a benevolent catalyst. We can bring people together. We can bring together people that maybe have divergent views around a common problem. We can really anchor the discussion in science. And that's so important. We have an issue around science literacy and adherence to science in our decision making today all across society. And that's where we start, is let's understand the science, Let's build values-based platforms that really bring people together to solve a common problem, even when we have slightly different views on that problem. But ultimately, it takes the big actors to invest deeply. It takes the large strategic companies. It takes the policy makers that have jurisdiction to really set the frame and take solutions to scale. And that's when we are just very happy to say, look, we've been a catalyst here, and our job is now done.
How do we get the next generations involved to care about these topics and, to really make action for their very future that is at stake? What advice and what ideas do you have around for today's young people who may want to become the next Norman Borlaug, or who are inspired by him to really, help do something big and noble for the world?
Christine, that's one of the things that gives me hope, is what I see in terms of the interest and the aspiration of the generation that's just kind of coming. I think for young people that are thinking about what to do with their lives, there can be no higher calling, no greater challenge than to enter this issue and really start to contribute their talent and expertise to helping us solve these issues.
So on that note, I do want to thank you so much for your time. And, really, it's so amazing what the Nature Conservancy is doing. And I'd love it if you could just leave us with, one big message that can go out to all of our viewers that they should internalize for this World Food Day, the 50-year anniversary of Norman Borlaug's, winning of the Nobel Peace Prize, and also for the UN Food System Summit audience, as they're starting to shape their agendas for next year. What should we all be thinking about from Michael Doane?
Well, we are in historic times. So we need to really fully embrace the solutions that are starting to become apparent. And I go back to Dr. Borlaug. I had the opportunity to meet Dr. Borlaug, and he was a wonderful man. And he really accelerated our understanding of how the food system could be more efficient, more productive. Our challenge today is different. Our challenge is about how do we keep that productivity but restore nature and actually make the food system central to the restoration agenda. Not an afterthought and not a competing idea, but actually one and the same. The food system is vast. We know that. It's trillions of dollars of commerce. It's the largest utilization of our land and sea resources. So within that provisioning power that comes out of the food system, the daily decisions of farmers and fishermen and consumers, there's a restoration agenda.
So thank you so much on behalf of, Thought for Food and CropLife International and everyone who's had the pleasure of hearing from you today, Michael Doane. It's been an amazing conversation, and we look forward to hearing more from you and the Nature Conservancy going forward.